Hi, I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Glenn.
And this is...
Couple versus Cardboard.
Today.
Well, and we wanted to follow up with a supplemental review of the Lords of Middle-earth expansion for War of the Ring.
Yes.
So the Lords of Middle-earth expansion is actually one of 3 planned expansions for War of the Ring. It deals with characters. The second one is going to deal with factions, so the factions of Middle-earth. And then the third one will deal with the siege works, so like the siege engines, you know, catapults and things like that. So those are the 3 planned expansions for the second edition. For the next one, we know for sure they're going to have all the same units that they had in the first edition expansion. So specifically, they'll have Corsairs, they'll have Ents, and they'll have Dunlendings. There's also some rumors flying around of what the other ones might be. There's a good chance it could be the Eagles for the Free People, Dead Men of Dunharrow, which would be really cool, as well as dragons for the Shadow. So that would be really interesting to see some of the different things that will be in the future. In addition to that, however, they also are going to be adding a battle system. It's not clear if it's expansions or if it'll be whole games just for particular battles. So in other words, one thing we know for sure is they have an upcoming Battle of 5 Armies game. Like, so excited about the Battle of 5 Armies game.
So excited.
I basically, every couple weeks, I just sit there and go, man, it's going to be so cool. The other ones that should be included are Battle for Helm's Deep and Battle of Pelennor Fields. So that'll be really exciting stuff. But specifically, as far as this goes...
So, Lords of Middle-earth.
Yeah, one thing we didn't necessarily talk a lot about in the last video was characters and minions. Are those the 2?
Companions.
Companions and minions. What is wrong with me? So characters generally, companions and minions specifically.
So what the companions can do is they start by all being together as a fellowship. And throughout the game you can separate them out. Mainly they add a lot more leadership to an army in battle and may or may not add a dice. They can also do things like activate a nation or whatever.
So one of the things that companions also add to the equation is just the ability to shield the ring bearers from corruption. So when the ring bearers would normally take corruption, you can sacrifice the guide to the fellowship, meaning the most powerful one, or you can sacrifice a random one. Yeah.
In addition to that, in the core box is Gandalf the White and Aragorn. So what happens is Gandalf, if he is either separated from the Fellowship or he dies, he can come back as Gandalf the White. You have Strider can become Aragorn if he's in Gondor, and he basically effectively reclaims his,
the return of the king, if you will. He returns.
And they both give you extra dice for your action roll, which is really great because then you can do more stuff. Yeah.
And as far as the Shadow player is concerned, there are 3. So one can be used in the early game, that's typically Saruman. One that can be mid-game, which is typically the Witch King. And then one is the end game, which is the Mouth of Sauron. And all of them have some really cool abilities. In addition, they also add additional die, like Cheryl was talking about. So as far as the Lords of Middle-earth expansion goes, it adds several different things. They usually say it's kind of like a what-if scenario as far as that goes, because most of the things that happen in the game are the kinds of things that you wish sometimes would happen in the book. Like, what would happen if Elrond uses his magic ring, or the Balrog helped Sauron, or what would happen if what's his name, Smeagol, were to be nice and cool and not
Smeagol is
not Gollum, right? Yeah. And that really is a lot of what this adds, as well as just some really cool characters that we wish we kind of could play as. Who do the Free People get?
They get Elrond.
Okay.
From Rivendell. You get Smeagol.
Okay.
So instead of having, you can draw a tile that will put Smeagol as the guide. You kind of get a different Gandalf the Grey, who has some different abilities.
Yeah.
So he comes with an extra dice that you can use on particular occasions, which is cool. And you get Lady Galadriel, the Lady
favorite.
of the Light.
Yeah, your favorite.
Yeah.
With the Shadow player, you get different versions of two of the characters. The Mouth of Sauron, there's a different version, as well as there's a different version of the Witch King. They also have two new lesser minions. They have Gothmog, who is, the mysterious general who shows up near the end of Return of the King, as well as there is the Balrog. Both have unique abilities, both have kind of very powerful abilities, but also are tempered similarly to the way that Elrond and Galadriel are, by as soon as you bring in kind of the most powerful character, the Witch King, for the Shadow, they begin to lose their lesser minion die, they lose some of these other abilities that they have. And so it kind of gives you a little bit of a boost in the early game, but towards the end of the game, it kind of levels off a little bit. There's also Smeagol, not to be confused with Golems.
Yeah, so Smeagol comes in, usually earlier on, and he becomes the guide as soon as he comes in. The main thing I think he adds is that when you get corrupted, he's an additional person that you can deflect the corruption onto.
This expansion is very, very subtle. Like for me, I got the game initially and thought, oh, I need to now go out and buy the expansion. And what I think I found as we tried to kind of do it was it added quite a few new rules.
Yes.
And it added in a number of things which at first are kind of a lot to take in when you're already trying to learn the other stuff.
Right.
So I don't necessarily recommend it if you just bought the game.
Like initially.
One thing, I mean, with the exception of it does give you figures for both Gandalf the White and Aragorn, which is actually really helpful. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily run out and buy it, not because it's not great, but because it's incredibly subtle. So one of the things, for example, that I think it adds is it makes it so it's a little bit easier to attack somewhere like Lothlorien and Rivendell with something like the Balrog. I think it adds some early game advantages in Minas Tirith, for the Shadow player trying to attack Minas Tirith with Gothmog. I think it gives some really subtle but great defense for the Free People's player in both Rivendell and the Lorien. So making that battle not only balanced but also really fun. But at the same time, if you're not as familiar with the gameplay of just the base game, I don't know that I recommend grabbing it right away.
That's super fair. For me, it adds to the kind of the theme and kind of like exploring the world of Middle-earth more, which I really love because I'm so fond of the Lord of the Rings. So it's just fun to add those characters in and to like recognize how powerful they can be.
That's what video is for. I can just start right over.
Take 2.
One thing I like about this room, by the way, is that there's no cat. How did we don't have the cat that we ended up with in the other one.